Today, I will tell you 3 tragic stories that happened in different corners of India. Each of these cases is horrific in its own way, and each will make you think again about the fragility of human life. At the end of 2016, in the area of the city of Ernakulam in the state of Kerala, local residents noticed a large blue plastic barrel lying not far from the river. No one paid special attention to this abandoned barrel. It lay on the ground for almost a year and a half. But when in January 2018, local residents approached the barrel and decided to examine it, they immediately smelled a sharp, unpleasant odor. The residents suspected that there might be a dead body inside, so they urgently contacted the police and reported the strange, frightening find. On January 8, 2018, the police of Ernakulam arrived at the place where that same blue barrel lay. The officers, using special equipment, cut through the plastic wall and found that the barrel was filled with hardened concrete and red bricks. Then the officers broke open the concrete and discovered human remains inside. The body and bones were in a state of decomposition, but some items survived: clothing, underwear, a silver chain, and 3 Indian banknotes, 2 with a denomination of 500 rupees and 1 with a denomination of 100 rupees. Long, thick black strands of hair about 50 centimeters long were also found in the barrel. This gruesome find shocked not only the local residents but also the police officers, who encountered such a horrific crime for the first time. On the same day, January 8th, all the discovered remains and items were sent to the Calicut Medical College for forensic examination. The specialists worked with the remains for 3 days. During this time, they tried to determine the gender and age of the victim, as well as establish the exact cause of her death. The presence of long, thick hair allowed them to determine that the victim was most likely a woman. But in the modern world, it is not uncommon for men to grow long hair. The experts reconstructed the skeleton, studied every bone. It turned out that the victim was of small stature, had delicate facial features, which indicated that the deceased was most likely a woman after all. The employees also established that her age was between 15 and 25 years. This was all the information that the experts could learn from the remains. Now it was time to carefully study the other items found in the barrel. The investigators' special attention was drawn to the currency with denominations of 500 and 100 rupees. It turned out that such banknotes were in circulation in India until November 2016. After that, demonetization occurred, the government issued new banknotes, and the old money was withdrawn from circulation. This information allowed them to establish that the crime was committed before November 2016. Moreover, local residents confirmed that they first noticed the barrel by the river around September 2016. People thought that the barrel had simply washed up on the shore. They did not know how it got there. No one had paid any attention to it before. The investigation of this mysterious case was handed over to the investigator of South Ernakulam named Sibi Tom. Sibi was an exemplary employee and was considered one of those who easily solved even the most complicated cases. But when Sibi received the case of the blue barrel, he was seriously puzzled for the first time, as he had never encountered anything like it before. On January 11, 2018, the investigator received a call from the forensic surgeon named Umesh, who performed the autopsy of the remains. The doctor reported to Sibi that during the examination of the bones, he discovered a 6-centimeter screw with a round washer on the end in the victim's ankle. Umesh was not sure if this find would be useful to the investigator, but just in case, he decided to inform Sibi about it. The doctor said that perhaps the victim had undergone surgery on her leg during her lifetime, during which this screw was installed. The doctor also reported that he noticed an inscription on the head of the screw, but he could not read it because he did not have special equipment. Sibi Tom thanked the surgeon for the important information. The investigator turned to the police photographer, and thanks to a high-resolution camera, they managed to read the barely noticeable inscription. It turned out that the manufacturer of the screw indicated the company name Pitcar and the batch number 11.9.5 on their product. This is a company from Pune that manufactures surgical equipment. One of its branches is located in Ernakulam, in the state of Kerala. Investigator Sibi Tom contacted the managers of Pitcar and tried to find out to whom and when they sold their products. He requested all the information for 2016. After studying the materials, Sibi found out that during this period, The company Pitcar sold 161 screws with washers under the batch number 11.9.5. At the same time, 155 screws were delivered to such large states of India as Maharashtra and Gujarat, and only 6 screws were delivered to different districts of the state of Kerala. The detectives assumed that the deceased could have been a migrant worker or the crime could have occurred somewhere in the western part of India, but first the police decided to find and check the 6 patients from the nearest Kerala. The investigative teams easily found 5 out of 6 needed patients who underwent ankle surgery in 2016. All were found except one patient, a 60-year-old woman named Shakuntala. The police visited the hospital where Shakuntala had her ankle surgery. After studying the medical records, it turned out that the batch number of the screw installed in Shakuntala matched the screw found in the barrel. Upon admission to the hospital, the 60-year-old woman provided her home address. The police went there and knocked on the door. A young woman opened it. The officers asked if Shakuntala lived there. The woman replied that Shakuntala was her mother, but she had disappeared in September 2016. When asked why Aswati had not contacted the police about her mother's disappearance, she replied that she and her mother had complicated, problematic relationships. The daughter stated that she was indifferent to Shakuntala's fate. She said that she did not care where her mother was. From birth, Shakuntala was a woman of mystery. No one knows who her parents were. A random woman found the 6-month-old baby near a pond, took the girl home and raised her as her own. Shakuntala grew up, got married, and gave birth to a son, Anup, and a daughter, Aswati. Later, her husband was found guilty in a political murder case and sentenced to life imprisonment. Shakuntala raised and supported her children alone. Her eldest son, Anup, in adulthood, got into a serious accident and became bedridden. In 2012, the guy voluntarily took his own life because he did not want to be a burden. Daughter Aswati ran away from her mother's home when she fell in love with a man whom Shakuntala did not approve of. The daughter gave birth to 2 children, divorced her husband, and in the summer of 2016 returned back to her mother. The police, having learned Shakuntala's story, began to suspect that her daughter might be involved in the woman's disappearance. They summoned Aswati for interrogation. Aswati said that when she returned to live with her mother, she met a new man named Sajid in her hometown. He was an employee of an animal protection society located in Ernakulam. Sajid occasionally visited the house of Aswati, who lived with her mom and children. At that time, Shakuntala earned a living by selling lottery tickets. She often traveled on a scooter. In September 2016, Shakuntala got into an accident. A truck crashed into her. The woman was taken to the hospital, where she underwent emergency ankle surgery. On September 15th, she was discharged home with a cast on her left leg. And on September 19th, it turned out that Shakuntala had caught chickenpox in the hospital. Her daughter Aswati, along with her children, moved to a neighboring house because they were afraid of getting infected with chickenpox. Sajid stayed to live in the house with Shakuntala. A week later, on September 26th, Aswati returned home and found that her mom was nowhere to be found. Aswati asked Sajid where her mom was. The man replied that she had gone to New Delhi to visit her old friends. Aswati did not look for her mother and was indifferent to her whereabouts. When asked where Sajid was now, Aswati replied that the man had died of a heart attack on January 9, 2018. It was on January 9th that the newspapers published a crime news story about the Blue Barrel and its horrific contents. The police contacted the hospital where Sajid was taken before his death. The medical records indeed contained information that the cause of the man's death was a heart attack. When the investigative team began questioning the neighbors, it quickly became clear that Sajid had an official wife named Sari in another city. The police found and questioned the woman. Sari said that she and Sajid had been married for 8 years, but they had no children due to the woman's health problems. Sajid really wanted heirs but did not want to leave his wife, so he began dating Aswati, Shakuntala's daughter. Sari knew that her husband had a love affair on the side and was not against it. In September 2016, Shakuntala learned that Sajid had an official wife. She said that she would tell her daughter everything. Aswati. Sajid flew into a rage. The investigators talked to Sajid's friends. One of his old friends said that once Sajid asked him to buy a plastic barrel. He said that he needed a container for water, which he was going to install in his mother-in-law's house. And 3 more friends said that they once helped Sajid carry a large blue barrel to the river. They had no idea what was inside. According to the friends, the barrel was very heavy. The friends' confessions allowed the police to solve this complicated case. Now no one doubted that Sajid had killed Shakuntala, placed her body in the barrel, poured concrete over it, and threw it near the river. The investigators believed that Sajid's main motive was the fear that Shakuntala would tell the truth about the man's double life, and his relationship with the Swati would end. Therefore, between September 19th and 26th, 2016, while Swati temporarily lived in a neighboring house, fearing to catch chickenpox from her mother, Sajid decided to get rid of Shakuntala so that she would be silent forever. And most likely, the crime occurred on September 22nd. It was on that day that Sajid withdrew a large sum of money from an ATM. It is assumed that with this money he bought that same blue barrel. It is believed that when on January 9th, 2018, the newspapers of Kerala published news about the horrific find on the riverbank, Sajid got scared that he would be found, so he tried to voluntarily take his own life by swallowing chemicals. There is no exact confirmation of this, but doctors reported that possibly due to strong substances, the healthy man had a heart attack. The Shakuntala case was closed, but the accused was already dead by that time. It is known that Sajid's official wife, Sari, learned that her late husband was a murderer right during childbirth. After long treatment, in March 2018, Sari gave birth to Sajid's long-awaited daughter. 40-year-old Megha Deshpande lived in a wealthy area of the city of Indore with her 21-year-old daughter Ashlasha and 70-year-old mother Rohini Fad. Megha had worked for a long time as a manager in a network company and achieved great success in her career, occupying one of the high levels of the pyramid in network business. Her passive incomes were growing. The woman was wealthy. But it wasn't always like that. Before moving to Indore, Megha lived with her husband and family in the city of Ujjain. Megha's husband worked as a consultant in a bank. The woman always dreamed of living in a more prosperous place to develop and reach new financial heights. Therefore, Megha made an important and difficult decision to move to Indore, taking her daughter and mother with her. Megha's husband did not want to quit his job at the bank and stayed in his native Ujjain. In Indore, Megha quickly made new acquaintances. The woman rented a spacious house. She continued to engage in network marketing. Her incomes grew rapidly. The area where the Deshpande family lived was quiet, calm, and prosperous. But in June 2011, a crime occurred there that made local residents shudder with horror. Sunday, June 19th, was an ordinary weekend day. Around noon, one of the neighbors was walking down the street and noticed strange traces near their house, resembling fresh blood. There was silence in the house. The neighbor knocked on the door several times, but no one answered. Then the woman approached the window and decided to look inside the house. Seeing what was there, the neighbor screamed loudly and urgently ran to call the police. The residents of the area, hearing the screams, immediately gathered at the house. Even before the police arrived, a whole crowd had gathered there. The officers opened the door and entered inside. They immediately found 3 dead women lying in the corridor on the floor in a pool of blood. These were Megha Deshpande, her daughter Ashlasha, and her elderly mother Rohini Fad. The police immediately began investigating the case. They believed that an unsuccessful robbery had occurred in the house. After searching the dwelling, the detectives found 2 bullet casings on the floor. It turned out that Megha was killed by a single shot to the head. After that, the bodies of Megha, Ashlasha, and Rohini were sent for autopsy. A few hours later, the report was ready. The experts determined that Ashlasha and Rohini had multiple stab wounds and died from blood loss. Only Megha received a gunshot wound. The second bullet was never found either in the women's bodies or in the house. Megha's husband, who is also Ashlasha's father, was horrified by the tragedy that had occurred. He insisted that the police make every effort and catch the criminal. Hot on the trail, the man was supported by local residents, who also put pressure on law enforcement agencies. It turned out that in addition to the blood of the 3 women in the corridor where the crime occurred, there were traces of blood from another unknown person. The police believed that it was most likely a man's blood, as only a man could single-handedly deal with 3 women in such a brutal way. The officers checked all previously detained and major criminals in that area, but none of them had fresh wounds. All suspicious men were questioned, but the police found no leads. Then the detectives began checking the victims' mobile phones. They studied contacts, call logs, read messages. In Mega's phone, they found an unfamiliar number that appeared quite recently. Mega received calls from this number and also made calls herself. The conversations were not short. The woman talked to someone on the phone for 20 to 30 minutes. The detectives learned that this number was registered to a young girl named Neha Varma. The police began tracking her location, and soon they detained the girl near an ATM. The police officers asked Neha to go with them to the station to answer a few questions about the murder of the Deshpande family. Neha told how she met Mega. Their first meeting took place in a shopping center in Indore. Neha, in a hurry, accidentally collided with Mega, who was holding bags. The bags fell to the floor after the collision. Neha apologized and helped the woman pick up the bags. They started talking, and then Neha escorted Mega to her car. In the end, they exchanged phone numbers and since then began calling each other and communicating. Neha learned that Mega worked in network business and also wanted to learn how to earn big money. Therefore, they often talked on the phone specifically about work. At the moment of Neha's story, the investigators noticed that the girl was nervous. She seemed to be trying to hide something important. They began questioning her more thoroughly. After a couple of hours, she finally told the truth. 21-year-old Neha Varma was a real Indian beauty. The Varma family lived poorly. Her parents were simple workers. Neha had just started working as a cosmetologist and dreamed of achieving financial success in the beauty industry. One day, Neha met a 20-year-old guy named Rahul Chaudhary. The young, handsome Rahul was as poor as Neha. They fell in love with each other and soon decided to get married. Rahul and Neha dreamed together of getting rich and living without denying themselves anything. And they also believed together that all this could be done in one day. One day, Neha, walking through a shopping center, noticed Mega, who was wearing expensive, high-quality clothes and a lot of gold jewelry. Neha immediately had the idea to meet this rich lady. Neha intentionally collided with Mega in the shopping center and then struck up a conversation. After that, they became friends and began to communicate regularly by phone. After some time, thoughts of robbing her new rich friend came to Neha's mind. The girl asked her fiancé Rahul to help her. Neha reported that only 3 women lived in Mega's house. There were no male protectors, so she had no doubt that the robbery would be successful. Neha told Rahul that they would get rich and fulfill all their dreams. They would have a lavish wedding and not need anything. Rahul agreed and began developing a plan. He decided not just to rob the Deshpande house but also to kill the whole family. Rahul believed that no one would look for the women for a long time. He enlisted his friend, 32-year-old Manoj Attad, for this matter. On Sunday, June 19, 2011, early in the morning, Neha called Mega and reported that she had decided to join her network company. Hearing this, Mega was delighted and immediately invited Neha to come to her house to fill out the application form. Neha came to the Deshpande family home. Mega placed an empty application form on the table and asked her young friend to write all her details. Neha was not good with documents, so she said that she would call her boyfriend Rahul and discuss some points with him. Immediately after the call, Rahul and Manoj went to Mega's house. They knocked on the door. The hostess opened it and invited the men into the house. Entering and slamming the door behind them, Rahul immediately pulled a pistol out of his pocket, pointed the weapon right at Mega, and fired a shot to the head. The neighbors heard nothing because Rahul fired at close range. But Ashlesha and Rohini immediately realized that something terrible had happened. The women ran out into the corridor. The criminals demanded that they hand over their bank cards with PIN codes. Fearing for her life, Ashlesha quickly handed over her card and dictated the code. However, Rahul and Manoj did not want to deviate from the plan. They understood that their faces had been seen and remembered, so the men decided to kill Ashlesha and her grandmother Rohini as well. In a panic, Rahul began shooting at Ashlesha, but the bullet missed. Then Manoj grabbed a knife and stabbed the girl multiple times. Rohini, trying to protect her granddaughter, rushed at the criminals, but Manoj stabbed her too. When the women were dead, Rahul and Manoj searched the house and took all the valuables: gold jewelry, cash, and bank cards. Then they fled the scene. After the crime, the men gave Neha Ashlasha's bank card and told her to withdraw money from an ATM. Neha went to the ATM and withdrew 50,000 rupees. At that moment, the police detained her. Rahul and Manoj hid in a rented apartment, but the police quickly found them. Manoj was arrested first. Rahul tried to escape. He jumped out the window and injured his leg, but he was also caught. 21-year-old Neha Varma, 20-year-old Rahul Chaudhary, and 32-year-old Manoj Attad were arrested and taken into custody. Took about a week to solve the case. Rahul was given medical assistance due to the gunshot wound in his leg. The police compared the blood samples found in the Deshpande house. The blood indeed belonged to Rahul. The detectives found blood-stained jewelry in the killer's house. 2 years later, in December 2013, the district court sentenced all 3 criminals to death. The Deshpande family case became one of the most brutal crimes in Indore. The criminals destroyed 3 generations at once: grandmother, mother, daughter. Megha's husband barely survived the terrible loss, and this grief will remain with him forever. Pooja Singh lived in eastern India in the large city of Kolkata. In her youth, the girl worked as a model. At 25, she got married and was happy in marriage. Closer to 30, Pooja ended her career in modeling and began organizing events in her native Kolkata. In the summer of 2019, Pooja went alone on a short business trip to Bangalore. On Monday, July 29th, she boarded a plane and flew direct to the desired city. Pooja had a booked hotel. Leaving the airport, she called an Ola taxi through a mobile app. The car arrived quickly. Pooja sat in the back seat, and the driver took the woman to the hotel. On the way, a light, playful conversation started between Pooja and the driver. Chatting, they did not notice how they reached the right place. But before leaving the car, Pooja asked the taxi driver for a favor. "I don't know if you will agree, but I will need a car to get to the airport on Wednesday, July 31st, at 4 o'clock in the morning. My business trip will be over by then, and I don't want to miss the early flight to Kolkata." Then Pooja said that she would pay him 1,200 rupees for the next trip. The man agreed and promised that on Wednesday early in the morning, he would take her to the airport. On Tuesday late in the evening, Pooja sent her husband a message that she would fly home tomorrow afternoon. The husband replied to her, but at the appointed time, Pooja did not return. The husband called his wife's relatives, her friends, acquaintances, but no one knew where Pooja was. Her 2 personal phones were turned off. The family began to worry. On the same day, after lunch, the husband received 2 messages from his wife's number. In the first message, Pooja wrote that she was in Hyderabad. She urgently needed cash. In the second message, the woman again asked that she needed money, 5,000 rupees. The husband tried to call his wife, but when he dialed, it turned out that Pooja's phone was unavailable again. After that, the husband sent a message with the text, "If you need money, call me urgently." There were no more calls or messages from Pooja's phone. The husband contacted the police station in Kolkata with a request to find his 32-year-old wife. The police accepted the statement about the missing young woman, but the officers did not take any action to search for her. Meanwhile, on Wednesday, July 31st, late in the evening, a local resident contacted the Bangalore police and reported that he had found a dead body in the airport area. It was a woman. Her face was so severely disfigured that her appearance was simply unrecognizable. The police sent a request to all stations, hoping to quickly identify the deceased. No responses were received. The Bangalore police did everything they could to find the relatives of the unknown woman. They photographed her tattoos on her body as well as her clothes. It turned out that the deceased was wearing branded items. The detectives, having learned the size, contacted the branded store where this rare brand was sold. They requested information from the managers about all buyers who purchased clothes of the same model and size in the last 2 years throughout India. The task turned out to be not easy. After that, The detectives requested data on missing persons in those cities where residents purchased this brand of clothing. Having received lists of missing persons from Kolkata, the detectives quite quickly found similarities between the unknown woman found near the airport and the missing Pooja Singh. On August 16th, Pooja's relatives flew to Bangalore and identified the body. It was indeed the 32-year-old Pooja Singh. During the investigation, it turned out that the work of the Kolkata police had gross violations. After Pooja's husband filed a statement that his wife was missing, no one began to search for the woman and did not pass this information to Bangalore, where she was on a business trip. Only thanks to the diligence of the Bangalore police was the woman eventually found. But now the police had to get an answer to the main question. What happened to Pooja? Pooja's phones from July 31st were never found. Fortunately, the husband had access to the deceased wife's email. After checking the mail, it turned out that upon arrival in Bangalore, Pooja ordered an Ola taxi through the app. The detectives learned the name and phone number of the taxi driver who drove Pooja that day. They decided to track him. The driver turned out to be a 22-year-old guy named Nagesh. After tracking the mobile phone data of Nagesh, the police learned that at the moment when Pooja's husband received a message from his wife that she urgently needed money, Nagesh's phone and Pooja's phone were in the same place. Thanks to this information, the police quickly detained the taxi driver. Nagesh denied his involvement in Pooja's death, but after a multi-hour interrogation, he told that on July 29th, he accepted an order from Pooja and drove the woman from the airport to the hotel. During the trip, they started talking. He admitted that he liked Pooja. He thought that the woman earned well. At the end of the trip, Pooja asked him to come to the hotel on July 31st at 4 in the morning and take her back to the airport. The woman was afraid that at that early time, she would have problems calling a taxi. She did not want to risk being late for the flight. Nagesh agreed to help Pooja for 1,200 rupees. Then he went home. The guy constantly thought about Pooja, and a bad thought came to his mind to rob her. Nagesh bought a knife and hid it in the car under the driver's seat. He also had a car jack and an iron rod there. The guy developed a robbery plan and thought through every step. On Wednesday at 3:45 in the morning, Nagesh drove up to the hotel. Pooja was already waiting for him on the street. The woman got into the car in the back seat. The taxi driver took her to the airport. On the way, Pooja fell asleep, and the driver turned off the route and drove the passenger along another road. He brought the woman to a deserted place, woke her up, and ordered her to give him all her valuables. Pooja began to resist. She ran out of the car and tried to call for help, but there was no one around. No one heard her screams. Nagesh took the iron rod from under the seat and hit the woman on the head. She lost consciousness and fell to the ground. Nagesh dragged her back into the car and drove towards the airport. After arriving at the airport territory, Pooja regained consciousness and again tried to escape. She opened the car door and, stumbling, ran towards the visible buildings. Nagesh caught up with her, pulled out a knife, and began stabbing her. Pooja tried to break free, called for help, but the injuries received were incompatible with life. Pooja died. Then Nagesh picked up a large hard stone on the road and disfigured the woman's face so that she could not be identified. After that, he dragged the body into the bushes. Nagesh took all of Pooja's valuables: 500 rupees from her wallet, 2 credit cards, 2 mobile phones, documents. The guy drove to the nearest mobile communication department, where he transferred several thousand rupees from Pooja's phone balance to his number. A little later, Nagesh sent Pooja's husband a message asking to send money. The husband found it strange that Pooja sent a message with a bunch of stupid errors. The husband realized that it was some kind of deception. He realized that his wife was in trouble and contacted the police. Nagesh was accused of murder, falsification of evidence, and robbery. In 2021, he was found guilty. He will spend the rest of his life behind bars. The detectives believe that Pooja could have avoided this terrible tragedy if she had been more cautious in a foreign city and called a taxi through the app, rather than arranging in advance with the driver. Pooja paid the highest price for the morning taxi ride. The police informed citizens and asked them to be more careful and use apps to protect themselves and reduce the risks of such cases. Thank you for your attention. Please rate this video, and as always, I await your thoughts in the comments.